So, hands. I have good news and bad news. Which one do you want first? Okay, the bad news is that drawing hands is the hardest thing ever. The good news is it's hard for everyone. You see, the difficulty of painting any part of the human body lies in the number of movable parts there are in it. And arguably, the hands and feet have the highest number of movable parts, which is what makes them so difficult to render. Each of your hands has 14 phalanges, 5 metacarpals, and 8 carpals. That's 27 bones per hand. That's not including any of the sesamoid bones, which occur at pretty much every joint, and their numbers vary from person to person. The movement of each hand involves 34 muscles, and I'm not even going to go into the blood vessels and the nerves. If there is one part of anatomy that I did not choose to study, it's the hands. So trust me, you are not alone in finding it hard to draw and paint hands. But the good news is, there are ways to make it easier. So today we're going to learn about how to draw hands using the pentagon method. Yeah, creative, I know. I literally just made up this technique based on several other resources and my own experiences, but hey, it works. We're going to start with some basic shapes. First, practice drawing pentagons. They don't have to be perfect with 5 equal sides, just get used to drawing a 5-sided shape. Draw them at different angles, vary the sizes and widths, and just draw like 100 of them until the shape becomes familiar. Next, we're going to place a circle on one side of the pentagon. This could be any side, but make sure the circle is as big as the edge, and that the edge lies pretty much at the halfway mark in the middle of the circle. Try doing this on all of the pentagons that you've drawn. Now we're going to draw a second, smaller circle right next to the one we drew on the other side of the pentagon. This one will be pretty snug against a corner. Make sure both circles are touching a common side. The placement is key here. So the big circle covers one edge and the small circle is at the neighboring corner. Again, do this on all of your pentagons until you're familiar with the placement. If you haven't already guessed, this is the palm of your hand. Now, here's where it gets a little complicated because we're going to start adding in some fingers. So that big circle we drew is going to be the big muscle at the base of your thumb. It's the big one that you contract when you want to move your thumb around. Try it. That means the thumb would grow out of that circle. The easiest way to draw a thumb is to draw a jelly bean, or a kidney bean for all you diabetics out there. Shout out to you guys for resisting the temptation. So let's practice drawing some jelly beans. Once you're familiar with the shape, try placing it on the outside of the bigger circle, like so. The further into the circle you bring it, the broader and stumpier the thumb will look. This is great for male lumberjack type of characters like Merida's dad in Brave. The thinner and further out the thumb is, the more graceful and mature it looks, like Elsa in Frozen. So we've got the thumb in place. Let us now move to the scariest part, the fingers. In a plain front-facing hand, the fingers are longest towards the middle and shorter as you go further out. And while we have 5 separate fingers, I find it super helpful to think of the middle, ring, and pinky fingers as a single sheet, while the index and thumb work separate as individuals. But for now, let's leave the thumb aside, almost like we're putting a pin on it. A thumb pin. At any point in time, you'll know pretty much exactly where to position the rest of the fingers based on the position of the index finger. And I actually think the index finger adds a lot to a person's character. A strong, steady index finger could, for instance, show confidence, possibly even arrogance. An index finger that is arched and point at the tip could indicate gracefulness. A stumpy finger is used to depict strength and brute force, or just a salt of the earth type of personality. Now, most books and tutorials tell you to visualize the fingers as being made of three cylinders that bend around. But personally, that method throws my proportions way off. So instead, I like to use a wireframe approach. We're going to start by drawing a simple line that bends in the middle. It is more important for you to be able to visualize the bend rather than to literally bend the line in half. This is the basis for your finger. If you really want to get technical, a second bend lies halfway through the upper half of the finger, but that's only usually relevant when the fingers are bent completely into a fist or around a pipe of some kind. So go ahead and create some bendy lines. Got it? Good. Now we're going to add mass to these lines, but in an unconventional way. You see, instead of adding blocks around the line, we're going to create springs. So with a light hand, start creating tight coils around the center line. If you like, you can create 3 separate coils for the 3 separate sections of the finger. This will help you better visualize the form of it. Plus, make sure to taper off one end of each finger to indicate the fingertip. The reason we're using coils is because it helps our brain better translate the appearance of a cylinder. Psychra has a great tutorial here on YouTube about using coils for foreshortening, so if you want to learn about other ways to use this technique, I will leave a link up in the cards and you can check that out next. For now though, go ahead and coil up all of those bendy lines that you've drawn. Again, remember that the fingertip tapers off. And finally, once we have all the coils in place, we're going to go in with a darker pencil and outline the form. And voila, you have a finger. But hang on, something's missing. I can't quite put my finger on it. Oh yes, the fingernail. It might seem like a minor detail, but the fingernail can totally make or break the aesthetic of your finger. The positioning of the fingernail clearly indicates the back of the finger. I've never met anyone whose nails are at the front of their hands. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're simply going to indicate fingernails using a simple oval for the front view or a semicircle for a side view. Go ahead and add these fingernails to the tapered end of each finger you've drawn. Nailed it! Now, let's put these fingers together to form an actual hand. Remember how I said the middle ring and pinky fingers can be seen as a single entity? Here's how I like to draw them in. I start with the pentagon, 2 circles, and a jelly bean to indicate the palm and the thumb. Next, I draw a single line for the index finger. Make sure it is longer than the thumb. And then for the rest of the fingers, I first draw a tapered rectangle. The smallest edge will be on the outside of the hand because the pinky finger is the smallest. So now if we look at this whole rectangle as a wireframe, it would bend the most at the halfway line. But also, like any sheet, it would twist around itself in such a way that moving any single part of it would move all of the other parts in relation. And you'll find that your middle ring and pinky fingers work in a similar way. Move one of these and the other 2 will move at the same time. So once that rectangle has its form and position, we can then use it as a guide to wireframe each of the remaining fingers. Then we coil each wire and then outline it and boom, you have a whole hand. Let's try some basic hand positions now from some references that I've found online. And finally, if you want to learn how to shade and paint these hand sketches to create realistic and dimensional hands, give this video a thumbs up and I will make a part 2. And there you go, guys. I hope you found this tutorial helpful and that it's made hands seem less scary to draw. If you would like a part 2 where we talk about dimensions and colouring in hands, then let me know by leaving me a big thumbs up and I will make it happen. As always, if you did enjoy this video, then please help me out by hitting that subscribe button down below so you do not miss when part 2 drops. Come say hi on all of my social media and all of that stuff. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. You know I love spending time with you.